New York City is home to thousands of bridges. They shuttle millions of goods, services, and people to and from the core of America's most economically dynamic metropolis every day.
They are one of the key foundation blocks on which the transportation system is built.
From the Brooklyn Bridge to the Williamsburg Bridge, to the soaring heights of the George Washington Bridge, this suite of engineering marvels has helped build New York into the hulking global city it is today.
What people don't realize is that we are the only 14-lane suspension bridge in the world. We are the busiest bridge in the world.
They have also set the tone for how bridges are designed across the United States. But with millions of vehicles crossing these aging structures daily, keeping them safe and functioning requires detailed cross-departmental planning and around-the-clock repairs.
We've already replaced 296 of the suspender ropes on the bridge.
Here's how America's largest city builds and maintains some of the country's most famous bridges. In the 1800s, the city of New York was just this, Manhattan. Except for a few crossings on the Harlem River at the island's northern tip, the only way into the city was via ferry. But even this disconnected geography couldn't slow the flood of immigration during the Industrial Revolution. By 1860, New York and the nearby port of Brooklyn ranked as the first and third largest cities in the United States. But they were separated by the East River. And the overcrowded city was in desperate need of relief. A bridge was becoming increasingly necessary. The only problem? A bridge to this magnitude had never been built before. Due to the East River's width, it would need to be longer than any other bridge in the world, but still tall enough for ships to pass underneath. Because the East River is technically a saltwater estuary, it would need to be strong enough to endure the turbulence of the Atlantic Ocean. For most civil engineers, this was simply too many obstacles to overcome. But this did not deter engineer John Roebling. He was a pioneer of a new type of technology that allowed bridges to span greater distances. The suspension bridge design relied on thick cables strung between two towers. Together, they could hold the weight of a much longer bridge deck. This is what Roebling had in mind for New York City. On April 16, 1867, the state approved construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. It was a risky and tumultuous endeavor that resulted in tragedy. More than 20 workers died during construction, and John Roebling didn't live to see his vision come to life. But on May 24, 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge finally opened amid great fanfare. It was at the time the longest suspension bridge in the world. The Brooklyn Bridge immediately spurred massive growth for the larger New York City area. Its success inspired the construction of more suspension bridges. One of those bridges at the complete opposite end of the island is the imposing George Washington Bridge. In 1931, it took the title of world's longest bridge. Its 600-foot tall towers carried a deck that spanned 3,500 feet across the Hudson River. Today, it's the busiest motor vehicle bridge in the world. Over 220 vehicles cross every minute. That sort of wear and tear demands regular upkeep.
So up there, they're working on rewrapping the cable. So it's part of the rehabilitation process for the main cables. So the main cables obviously are the main support for the bridge. They can't be replaced. They consist of 26,474 wires that run from anchorage to anchorage, almost a mile in length.
In 2015, the George Washington Bridge was in need of extensive repairs, so city officials granted almost $2 billion towards the Restoring the George program. The goal is to make it last another 100 years.
So we strip off the outer casing, we clean up the wires that are there, we repair any broken ones that exist, and then we seal it back up. We wrap it with a new wire wrapping, paint that outside, and then put an elastomeric wrap over top of all of it. On this side of the bridge, on the north side of the bridge, we've replaced all the suspender ropes. So there's 592 suspender ropes on the entire bridge, both sides. So we've completed the replacement of all 296 on the north side. The process was repetitive, but it's still complex. And there's a lot of steps to make sure it's done safely and not compromise the bridge in any way.
We've replaced every single one of these ropes, pretty much with a single lane closure, other than when they put the platform up.
But replacement of these ropes doesn't come without risk. Once one is removed, the ropes must be properly balanced. If not, this could cause the bridge to tilt. As a safety measure, workers install temporary suspender ropes that help carry the weight of the deck until the new cable is ready.
Along with that, we're also going to be replacing 32 orthotropic deck panels that are adjacent to the finger joints. So far, we've replaced the 16 bearings that sit underneath. We've started prepping the steel underneath and relocating electrical as needed. The finger joints are being fabricated, and they should be start installation later this year.
And these joints will expand up to 21 inches during the course of the year through thermal expansion.
City officials aren't only looking to improve conditions for drivers. From 2008 to 2018, New York City saw a 116% growth in daily cycling. And with 10% of New Yorkers commuting to work by foot, the city must ensure its sidewalks are well maintained on streets and bridges alike.
So we're standing on the existing sidewalk, and here you can see where we've poured some new sidewalk. A little bit higher elevation. We rip out the whole existing, replace the steel supporting beams, form and pour a new deck. They're getting ready to take out pieces of the existing sidewalk. So here you can see where we're getting the new sidewalk ready for concrete. At this point, they've already removed the existing, installed the new steel, installed your formwork. It's the same process over and over 500 times.
Through the year, we move about 800,000 pedestrian cyclists across the bridge. A lot of people don't realize that we move that many. So we needed to create an environment that was hospitable to them. When the whole entire project is over, we're going to have the North Walk open to cyclists and the South Walk open to pedestrians, separating them on the span so they have a better user experience.
But whenever a bridge in New York needs repairs, it needs to stay open.
Part of the complication with doing this work here, replacing this roadway, was how to do it without disrupting the traveling public. So this project on its own was broken into 15 stages. We had to do it piecemeal. So we would do a strip at a time. So building this section out here was essential to completing that work.
The George Washington Bridge Restoration Project is expected to be completed sometime in 2025. It's just one example of all the work it takes to keep New York's aging but iconic bridges standing. Most of New York's notable bridges have surpassed or are nearing a century of service, so upgrades and regular maintenance are essential.
You need to maintain them on a daily basis. You need to clean them. You need to have a emergency response system in the event of accidents. In terms of our bridges and our tunnels, there's a constant traffic management challenge, peak periods. Fundamentally, you start out day to day with having to have operations and maintenance staff 24/7. Longer term, you have the challenge of maintaining infrastructure.
Multiple organizations operate the more than 2,000 bridges and tunnels in the city. A variety of other state and federal organizations provide an additional layer of oversight. Keeping up with all the needs of each bridge is a constant challenge. But in general, many of the crossings tend to be suffering from two primary issues: age and ever-increasing use. Upon completion of the Brooklyn Bridge, pedestrians, horse-drawn carriages, trolleys, and carts were the main modes of transportation. Today, the 138-year-old bridge endures the daily crossing of 116,000 vehicles, 30,000 pedestrians, and 3,000 cyclists. Over the years, weather and time have taken their toll on the bridges of New York. But today, cars are heavier, and crossings are increasing. In 1948, an average of 1 million vehicles crossed the bridges of New York City each day. Today, that number is threefold. In 2017, the New York State Comptroller's Office released a report that identified 86 bridges in the New York City area as structurally deficient. Authorities knew they had to take action.
In case of the Port Authority, we have, in the last 10 years, rebuilt one bridge totally, which was the Goethals Bridge, which goes from New Jersey to Staten Island. Second bridge, which also goes from New Jersey to Staten Island, the Bayonne Bridge. The entire roadway surface was raised up and the bridge entirely reconditioned and renovated.
In 2021, New York State made $200 million available to local governments to enhance bridge resiliency. But structural upgrades are just one part of bridge management. Bridge authorities are also responsible for keeping travelers safe. The Port Authority, for example, even has its own EMS service specially trained to deal with conditions bridges and tunnels present. They are called tunnel and bridge agents.
This is actually the more typical, if you ever hear Jaws of Life, they talk about it's a big spreader. So what it does is when we open and close the teeth, it basically sprays the material away. This is what we call a cutter. So this is going to be able to cut different types of posts, materials, whatever I need to cut away to make access to the patient.
Prospective agents do most of their training at the Middlesex County Fire Academy, just outside New York City in Sayreville, New Jersey. Here, instructors prepare them for what they may face day to day on the job.
You're driving across a GW bridge and your car breaks down. They're the men and women out there, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whether it's 0 degrees out, 100 degrees out like it is today. They're out there taking care of our customers to keep them safe, secure, and make it an enjoyable experience as they're going through our facility. Even though sometimes they're dealing with traffic, our people out there trying to keep the traffic moving.
Enough to get it into neutral. That's what this box is really for.
This is a unique position that the tunnel bridge agents have. They utilize multiple different disciplines where normally some of these disciplines are separate on the outside.
Most of the tasks that they'll be required to do will be towing. That would be the most common thing. On an average, they probably do about 80 to 85% of their job is involving responding to disabled vehicles.
When a vehicle accident occurs in a bridge or tunnel, it's all hands on deck.
A lot of times what happens is they stop traffic. You know, we have color coding on the basically traffic lights inside the tunnel. And at that point, once the traffic is stopped and they make sure that there's no other cars coming out, typically they respond against traffic. Once the fire starts, the car burns, it gives off a lot of smoke, a lot of black smoke. And that smoke rises and it starts to fill the actual tube where you're in. So it gets to a certain point where there's actually zero visibility. So these guys still need to respond. And when they're responding, they're actually driving strictly on that camera. So they straddle the two solid lines in the tunnel, so they have some kind of orientation where they're at, but they're still basically utilizing that particular 7-inch screen. And then once they come up onto the vehicle that's on fire, then they go through their routine as far as angling and doing their thing.
Once at the scene, agents employ techniques that apply specifically to bridge and tunnel rescues. Techniques that require specific training and custom equipment.
This drillers utilize a specialized piece of equipment they utilize in the Holland Lincoln tunnels for tunnel firefighting and tunnel towing. So it's a very small wheelbase truck that can turn around in the tunnel. There's actually a fire system on the tow truck that actually can be utilized to put out any kind of vehicle fires or any outside fires they might be able to deal with throughout their tours and stuff like that. We're actually in the process of evaluating a new nozzle system that works better. The old system itself has a habit of getting very clogged up and not working as well. There's different types of systems out there that utilize compressed air foam, which is foam, water, and air put together. And actually it's a smaller system. It's more, I guess, more user-friendly.
Right when you get on the scene, if we're called out for an entrapment, we would pull up, make sure the victim's vitals, if he's conscious, unconscious, stabilize the victim, and then we would proceed to stabilize the vehicle, and depending on which side the person's on, if he's the driver, we would take the door off, see if he's pinned. Sometimes it comes in as a pin job, we call it. Sometimes you could just open the door, and but if that's not the case, we'll use the jaws of life.
We prepare them for these different things, but what actually happens, that's, you know, every day could be a different day.
We prepare the men and women that are out in the field, that are out there 24/7, that are protecting our facilities and protecting our customers that are using our crossings every day. You may not see them out there because nothing's happening, but they're the ones that get paid to do when things hit the fan or go wrong.
While this unique group of first responders are keeping people safe, policymakers have also been working to bring New York's bridge technology into the 21st century. For half a century, the city relied on its existing suite of bridges. The last major bridge the city saw completed was the Verrazano Narrows Bridge in 1964. But as the region works to stay competitive with its global counterparts, new bridge projects are once again in vogue. In 2017 saw the opening of the new cable-stayed Kosciuszko Bridge in Brooklyn. This was followed shortly by the Goethals and Mill Basin bridges. One proposal, currently deemed the Queens Ribbon, would connect Midtown Manhattan and Queens and serve only pedestrians and cyclists. Supporters of the Queens Ribbon are already envisioning two more pedestrian-only bridges, one spanning Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn, and another between Manhattan and New Jersey. Together, these bridges could help build out already existing calls for a 5-borough bikeway. Beyond new proposals like this, New York's oldest bridges are still finding ways to play central roles in defining the city, even a century after their completion. Over time, New York's bridges have become part of the city's unique cultural life. Walking across the Brooklyn Bridge is one of the top activities for tourists. And this view of the Manhattan Bridge, as seen from the neighborhood of Dumbo, is a must-have photo op. The Williamsburg Bridge might not be the most recognizable bridge, but it too has found an unexpected use as a canvas for street art.
There are three fundamental types of graffiti, right? You have tagging, which is literally script writing, throw-ups, which are bubble letter style, and then you have pieces, which is kind of the artistic version of graffiti.
It's this artwork that's defined the bridge for decades.
Is graffiti good or bad for New York? You know, some people think it's a scourge to society. Other people think that it's like the most important art form that we have. At the very least, everybody can agree that there's some really interesting art happening here. Is really second to none.
During the 1960s, the bridge was so deteriorated that rust often fell onto pedestrians, and the only fresh paint was graffiti.
The Williamsburg Bridge, in essence, a highway above the East River. You have so many visual eyeballs. To have your work here is like a primo canvas. Tagging is like very quick. Basically a fundamental writing of the alias. No, it's definitely a tag, it's a hand style. But, you know, you want to look for something more clean, you know, like on top of the bridge, that's like considered to be a piece, you know?
And while the bridge has undergone renovations over time, street art has always found its way to the bridge's surfaces.
Pieces are pieces of graffiti that are artistic in nature. It's not just about getting up with style, getting up with pizzazz.
From street art to pedestrian bridges, special emergency responders, massive renovation projects, and that daring act from John Roebling, New York City's bridges hold a wealth of stories. They have been there for every major chapter of the city's development. And they've fueled New York's growth, helping it become a global center of culture, finance, and creativity. Now they are guiding the city through the 21st century with stunning acts of civil engineering.
The bridges and tunnels are real foundation pillars on which people can move, whether it's goods or whether it's personal vehicles or buses are necessary in terms of regional transportation capabilities.
And new ideas about how to facilitate sustainable urban transportation. No one knows what New York's bridges will look like a century from now, but one thing is for sure. They will remain a crucial part of the city's identity.